Hi, welcome to Hamilton and Hazen, Behind the Mic. Join author M.L. Hamilton and me, I'm narrator Kelley Hazen, as we discuss our latest audiobook. Born from our 7 years of collaboration and more than 60 audiobooks we've produced together, listen to the ins, the outs, the ups, and the downs, the inside track you love to follow, Behind the Mic.
Welcome to Behind the Mic, number 5. Today we're going to talk about the Year of Discovery box set. That's all 12 novellas that we have compiled into one massive box set, which has been out for about a month now, I think. It's doing really well.
But interesting, you wrote it and we started recording it 2 years ago?
Yeah. So today we're going to flip the switch, and you're going to do the interviewing. You're going to do the interviewing. Okay.
All right. Hi. Welcome to Behind the Mic. I'm your host. No, I'm silly. Year of Discovery. That was a completely different. We went in a completely different direction, and I have to say that's just as an aside. So I know this is supposed to be about you, but let's talk about me. No. One of the things I love about our relationship is that nothing is off the table. We can talk about anything, or talk about working on anything in our collaboration. Even now, correct me if I'm wrong, we talk a lot about the fact that you and I have our catalog crosses many genres, that we cross over into a lot of areas. But and this sort of comes from two places, because we were deep into the Peyton Brooks mysteries. We were deep into the Zion Sawyer cozy mysteries. We were deep into the Avery Nolan adventure series. We were talking about the epic fantasy with the Eldon books. And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, you come to me with this, hey, let's write a 12-book series, one book a month for an entire year. Let's name it after every month, and it's like, wait, what? Screech and breaks. And even now, we're, you write or compile, are they from journals? You write nonfiction, right? And we're talking about life as a writer, correct?
Right.
And your life specifically as a writer. And we're talking about recording that, which I 100% think we should. And then, and also you've written children's stories based on your pets.
Right.
And we're in conversation about taking those and recording them as a children's box set, just recording them in a group, not releasing them individually, but just in terms of audio, putting them all together. And I always love that, because about you, that you get an idea about writing and you write it. I think about writing and I think about it, and I think it to death, but you just do it. And why did you get the idea, because mystery kind of connects to cozy, mystery kind of connects to adventure, but this Year of Discovery, and although there are suspense elements, I think, in all of these stories and in everything you write, where did this idea come from?
So we were right in the middle of the U2 movement, the Me Too movement. U2 is
That was a good one.
different. We were right in the middle of the Me Too movement, and I was thinking about the whole idea of womanhood, and how no matter where we come from, what our background is, what our racial makeup is, what our religious background is, or our cultural background, there is a thread that joins all women together. And our experiences are unique, and yet they're not. I mean, yet they are relatable. I think all of us can relate to the experiences. And so I had this idea of representing these women bound together by this one event, which was the death of one of the characters who we only see in flashbacks. We don't ever even hear from her directly. But I thought all women are interconnected in that way. We can find some kind of thread that joins us that's a common bond. And I thought these 12 women being joined by this one event was an interesting idea. And then I got to thinking about releasing one a month. I've always been fascinated by the Charles Dickens serials and the fact that so many of his books were sent out, once a month. People were waiting for those books to come out once a month. And I think that's a fascinating way of writing. And I know Amazon has a new thing that they're offering called the Vellum. And it's where they're doing these episodic releases like this. And so I thought, well, could I write, first of all, could I write one book a month? Could I find 12 different voices and 12 different stories that would sort of blend together into one universal kind of tribute to womanhood? And then could we record the audiobooks and have them come out as close to being once a month? And so the thing that I think is most exciting about this series to me is the fact that I came with this crazy idea. And when I mentioned it to other writers, or I mentioned it to my family, they were like, have you lost your mind? But when I presented to you, you were like, let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's try. And I, to be honest with you, you were the only person who told me, we can do this. We can get this accomplished. And we did it. We did do 12 books. And I think they all were, I know they all came out in the month that I wanted them to come out, the actual physical book did. But I believe that the audiobooks were pretty darn close. We were really just nailing them.
Yeah, because I remember you wanted the books out as close to the first day of the month as possible. And the audiobooks all came out within the month.
Right.
A couple of them were near the end of the month just because there's that turnover time. I mean, that wasn't us. That was, there's the QA Audible that they have to go through. But and we have that's no fixed time on that quality assurance process. But yeah, they all came out within the month. And I was proud of that. I was just from a production point of view for both you and I. Because we talk deadlines all the time for marketing and promotion and stuff like that. And I can always tell when there's the echo, when there's the crickets on the other end of the phone, that you're in the midst of your creative process and deadline means nothing.
Yeah.
Falling on deaf ears, that you must respect the creative process. And so you had to force yourself, you had to be very strict with yourself, not only because you had the goal for yourself, but because you knew that you had to deliver. And we started recording books that you had not finished writing.
Right.
If you'll recall, you had I think most of the books were 7 chapters, right? 7 or 8. And you refused to send me anything until you were at least in chapter, I think 4 or 5.
Yeah, that causes me endless anxiety. Just so you know, to turn over a book before it's completely finished, it's just anxiety provoking. And I've done it multiple times. But I always feared, what happens if I suddenly realize there's this major plot hole. But yeah, for me, it was a discipline thing. Like, how disciplined could I be? Could I maintain this? And I don't want to do it again. But I think it was a good writing process. I think it was a good learning process to attempt to do that and to see if I could.
I have to say, and to our listeners too, because when you were talking about Dickens, the work of Dickens and how it came out in serial, Stephen King, right?
Yes.
For those of us who are not necessarily, and I love the classics, but for those listening who aren't, necessarily into classics, Stephen King wrote The Green Mile
Yes.
as a serial. A chapter a month came out, or yeah, I think it was a chapter a month, and that's how I read it. I couldn't wait for the next, and they were tiny little paperbacks that were, really, really thin. And I couldn't wait each month for the next one to come out and go down to the drugstore, right, and get it. And those of us, if you're listening to us now, do that. Read it, and you can do it with the Year of Discovery if you want to, because I mean, you can get it as a box set, but all of the individual titles are available. And listen to January, and then force yourself to wait until February to get February, and let yourself listen. It's an amazing, it's a wonderful experience to meet out and to cause yourself to consider what you've already heard or listened to, or read, and to just think about that and mull over that while you wait with bated breath for the next installment.
I think that's a really interesting point that you're making, because I think of this Netflix era where your camera just went out, by the way, but
Lexi, we can't control everything that happens to us. We can't control if we're going to have appendicitis or if our husband is going to leave. But we can control how we respond. In the end, it's really not about all the things you have or you've done. It's about how often you get back up when you've been knocked down. It's about looking toward the future and saying, I want this and I deserve it. It's about fighting for what we want, and when we get knocked down, getting back up and saying, let's go again. It's about being in the battle, not standing outside the ring waiting for someone to punch us in the head. It means facing those punches directly, and sometimes it means punching back. She picked up the application. Here's the first step, honey. Here's the first chance you get to take your life back. Now, I'm not going to promise you that it's going to go smoothly or that there won't be bumps in the road. But I promise you it'll be worth it no matter what happens, because today, Lexi, you're going to say, this is my life, and I'm going to start living it.
Welcome back to Behind the Mic. Some unexpected technical difficulties allowed us to give you the opportunity to watch the trailer for the Year of Discovery. Michelle and I created that trailer. It's the first one we did together, and it was a surprising, yet another collaboration in a different medium. We actually, I think when we first started doing Behind the Mic, we may have mentioned that Michelle and I have only physically been in the same room with each other. I think, did we say, Michelle, 3 times, 2 times, something like that?
Twice, yeah.
Twice. And one of those times we decided, once we realized the magnitude of and the potential of the collaboration that Michelle and I had as author and narrator, we decided to have a retreat. It was very fun. And it was a few years ago in, it was March. It was in a March. And during that time, we created that trailer. And I think I love it. And I hope you do too, as an audience. But so thanks for watching the trailer. Where were we, Michelle? What were we talking about?
We were talking about the whole nature of the serial idea, and you were saying something about, that people should maybe try doing that. And it made me think of how we've become trained to expect instant gratification in the form of Netflix. They'll do a whole dump of a season of a show and everything, and we can binge watch it now. And how often we do that, and how it is kind of fun to kind of deny yourself a little bit of, that self gratification right away, and then how sweet it is when you go to the next offering when it's made available to you. So
it's like waiting for Christmas morning to open your presents.
right.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you bring that up, because I mean, there's a couple of series, The Nevers on HBO. I don't know if you've been watching that, but I just decided I'm waiting till I can watch them all, where I can watch them one right after the other. I watched the first couple and I loved it, but it was like, I just don't want to wait. And we really have gotten into that mode of not experiencing anticipation. Yeah, no, that's definitely right.
My most guilty pleasure lately has been Ted Lasso on Apple TV. And oh my gosh, I did the same thing. I binged it, I think, in 2 days, and now I'm like with the withdrawal, not having it. So yeah.
But there will be a second season. So
yes, there will be.
That's very exciting. And it was funny that the end of it, you don't have a sense. They tie it up with a really nice bow, and you think, this doesn't have to go anywhere. It was a very I liked that series a lot, and I thought it was timely. It was a nice message considering where we were in the whole pandemic experience.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to think how to form this. So we talked about the idea, how you got the idea to do this. And did we actually touch on, it came to you, I wonder if I can do a book a month? Or was it because you saw someone else do it, or?
No, it was just that I thought, I just wanted to try that idea, whether it could be done or not.
But I remember as we were, particularly as we were doing it, and we were so excited about it, both from a content point of view and from a structural point of view, just the very nature of trying to do something that disciplined and that structured. But I remember both you and I discussing, and also the fact that we were in the middle of Me Too, and that we thought it was timely for this content and for these stories, these 12 different stories. But strangely, the series was not immediately well received. It was not, and I remember long conversations between you and I about trying to understand that. What finally was your take on it's like the most misunderstood series in audiobooks and in books. What's your take on that? Why do you think that happened? What did you experience in regards to that?
I think it's just it's the idea of expectation, which we're all guilty of that. We have an expectation of what somebody what somebody is, and I have become a mystery writer, and so I think that the idea of going to something that wasn't necessarily inherently a mystery was difficult for some people. But I also think there was this stigma attached to it, that there were so many during that period of time. I think what was it, weekly you were hearing of some high-powered man just being brought down because of his past behavior. And I think that there was this idea that, well, this series must be about hating men, and it's so far away from that. That's not at all what it is. But I think that there was that sense that this is going to be just about slamming on or railing against the patriarchy, and it's not about that. It's just about sharing those women's point of views. I think the turnaround was a really weird thing. I was at the state fair when we had state fair, and in the author booth, I had the series out there, and people would come by, and I was up to July at that point, and people would come by and they were picking up their birth month, which was a really weird phenomenon. They were saying, well, I want the one for my birth month. And I, at first, because I'm the worst person for marketing myself, I struggle with selling my own stuff. And so at first I was like, no, it's a progressive series here. And then one of the women who helps me out, Danita, she said to me, why are you doing that? Why are you talking them out of buying the book? Let them buy the book. if that's what gets them into it, let them buy the book for their birth month. And so I, it was one of those epiphanies where I went, wait, what am I doing? Why am I talking people out of buying a book? Because they're misunderstanding what the purpose of the book is. And what I found was that was almost like the opening of the floodgates. Is people started reading the books because they bought it because it was their birth month, and then they were like, wait a minute, this is a whole story. And it started being where it became this collector's thing where people were collecting the different months and trying to fill out their whole series. And they really got to where they wanted. And towards the end, from about July on, I had people like, I'm waiting, when's the next one coming out? I would get emails from people, when is the next one coming out? I mean, is it going to be out August 1st? Is it going to be out September 1st? Because then they caught on to what it was really about. And it was just that overcoming both the stigma attached to it externally and then my own personal limitations I was putting on the series.
Yeah, I in my life experience, I think sometimes, in my life experience, I think sometimes that other women are the hardest. Women are the hardest on other women, and part of what I learned and gained in recording this and in living these 12 women's lives and giving them a voice was we should work together. Mm-hmm. Right? No one understands better what it is to be a woman and the obstacles that we face than another woman.
Right.
And we should be lifting one another up, not tearing one another down. And it is so interesting. That is such an interesting phenomenon in the world. I'm guilty of it myself. And but that was one of the things I learned. What did you learn? I mean, was there anything in having experienced this structure or in discovering these stories or in any of that? What did you learn from going through this experience?
Right. Well, I think what you said is so important too, is I mean, yeah, every woman is guilty of doing this, the competitive nature seeps in and we tend to, I mean, I've heard my own words coming out of my own mouth where I'm tearing another woman down and I don't understand why I'm doing it and or why I have that instinct to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think going through these 12 women's lives, and I tried to be as broad across the spectrum. I know that there's a big push now for writing what you know and writing what you experience, and I get that, but I also wanted to try to write from the perspective of other women going through things that I haven't experienced myself. I think about Lexi with the battling drug addiction. That's not something I've experienced, but it was interesting. It was interesting to go into that dark place and how do you climb back out of it. I think of Destiny being a widow, how does she deal with that? And then Micah, who, her whole world is falling apart, and how does she come back from that? How does she pull her life back together again? And the one that I think most of all that was hard for me to tap into is Margot. The idea of losing a child is so terrifying to any woman who has had a child or raised a child or had a hand in bringing a child along. The idea of losing a child and how do you function? How are you ever even partially whole again? That one was a scary one for me. I shied away from writing that one because there were times where I'm literally writing it that I was sobbing because just the idea of what she was going through was so hard for me to even fathom. So I think it was a good exercise for me. And then I think you brought up why am I drawing a blank? That Sato. What is her first?
Mariko.
Yeah.
Mariko.
Yeah.
Psychiatrist, and she's very kind. She's a mother.
I think about her experience. With having to reject her son, and my goodness, I mean, I just don't even, realizing that the only way forward is to make that choice.
Hard luck.
Yeah. So I think those are the things I learned, was just the delving into those characters' lives and their motivations and why they make the choices that they make, and realizing at the elemental level there is this universal female experience, woman experience that we all share. And if we were to just tap into that and that realization, boy, I think, women could even advance further than what they've advanced. If we just elevate, like you said, if we lifted each other up, if we elevated each other, we realized that, it's a sisterhood.
It's
And
reclaim the power. I mean, in ancient cultures, there are whole countries run by women in matriarchal, a matriarchal hierarchy, and that's been chipped away and changed over time and beaten down, and yeah, I think, just taking back that power by uniting and supporting,
and I think we saw that with the Me Too movement. We saw women who were supporting each other, who were saying, that is my experience too. I mean, that was the whole point, that is my experience. That is what I felt. And it in no way, I'm raising 3 men, or I raised 3 men. It in no way diminishes men. It also allows men to let go of some of the toxic elements that we forced upon them too, by realizing that.
Yeah. That was one of the, it is funny when we were talking about the series being misunderstood and sort of a preconceived notion that it would be man hating or man bashing, when the men in the stories, for the most part, are supporters, and they are lovely individuals. I think by the time the more we talked about the series and the more we worked on it, the phrase new beginnings started to come up a lot, that this was a series about new beginnings. And I think it's interesting because, that sounds very sunshine and cookies, new beginnings. But a lot of several of these stories, these women were forced into new beginnings. These people were forced into new beginnings and they didn't want to go there, or maybe that new beginning wasn't necessarily a wonderful place to be. You were talking about Lexi from March, and struggling with drug addiction and overcoming drug addiction. And I always think of that in not unlike Micah. What Micah faces in December is, yeah, she overcame it, but then she's also got to, one day at a time, she's got to continue to overcome it. It's every day is a new beginning in that regard. And that to me is what was so beautiful about the series. I mean, when I think of those 12 women and the 12 obstacles, it's, you can call it the female experience or whatever, but you started that series so beautiful because at the beginning there was Maddie Yates, and and it's a series about new beginnings. But in order to create those 12 voices that would, in the hope that people would listen to every month, finding that difference in those voices. And Maddie just had a very simple dream that it was really difficult for her, to take those steps forward to approach that dream of the bed and breakfast. It was very simple. And it's, and how many of us have had those situations where we want to do a thing and we just can't marshal the forces or the courage to just begin, and so that was such a beautiful unifying way to start that series. And of course, Maddie was the sister of Meredith. Meredith is the woman that has passed away, that the death that unites these 12 stories. All these 12 people are connected to Meredith in some way and her death. You mentioned Margot, who was the mother of these 3 girls. And Margot, who had lost her life's partner, Alan. And in the very beginning of the book, she's talking to Alan, and she spends a lot of time remembering Alan. And she meets a man that she thinks she might be able to love again, and giving herself that permission, that she's not somehow betraying Alan, even though he's passed. I mean, it's simple. It seems obvious, but still that idea that we're supposed to belong to somebody,
Yeah.
and
Just hearing you do the voices, I get chills. What I think people don't know, in that series, I wrote the youngest character I've ever written. Why am I drawing a blank on names?
Lizzie?
Yes.
Lizzie.
Lizzie. Yeah.
Nurse.
Yes.
Lizzie, who wants to be a nurse, and she's very excited she's in school.
Yes.
She's
Lizzie.
really wonderful. Yeah. And she's
Youngest character. And
Yeah.
then the oldest character I've ever written in Margot. And not experiencing that too was something I wanted to try. So
yeah, Lizzie is May and Margot is July. And then there's Micah, who's the youngest one. She's the youngest sister of the Yates family. And Maddie and her bed and breakfast, and Micah, Micah is just, she's happening. She's in marketing, and and she's doing really well, and she drinks too much, and and this one fascinated me because I like my vodka and kombucha, and the idea that in her sadness over her sister, she drops into a habit in drinking, right?
right.
And allows herself to become an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And
what's interesting about Micah is she was the one, more than any others, I mean, more than any of the other ones, where somebody would write to me repeatedly, because Micah kind of carries through the whole series. You see Micah frequently. They would write to me saying they were worried for her. They were scared for her. And I think that idea of masking your gut level pain with alcohol, how many of us can relate to that? How many of us come home from just a miserable day at work and it's a glass of wine, or and how quickly what a slippery slope that is, and how I think so many of the readers, maybe they couldn't necessarily relate to Lexi, but they could relate to Micah. They could see how you could, because it's legal. It's everywhere. It's so part of our culture. And I think they could relate to Micah, and they could see how that spiral could be very, anybody could,
possible.
could go like that.
Yeah, that downward cycle, it's like getting caught in a riptide. I mean, you just keep, and yeah. I mean, but these women, I was, Maddie has the dream and just the inability to follow through. Destiny, who is a war widow and has the dream of becoming a singer. And yet beyond that, she, because her church thinks that because she's a war widow, she's flung into a situation where she's dealing with suicide and the potential of suicide from a very similar situation where she lost her husband. Lexi, who's a single mom, whose ex-husband is trying to take her daughter away from her, and she's struggling with trying to get, her education started and whether or not she's going to be able to pull it off, and the throes of getting out of drug addiction. Rosie, who's, she's a mom, she's a successful bank manager, she's got teenage boys, she's got, a lovely marriage, and juggling career and family and yet not feeling fulfilled. And that was one of the most interesting stories, I think, because they're not all happy endings. And how many women have been in a position where they have to sacrifice self for their family?
I remember you bringing that up when I finished April. As you said, what you liked about that book in particular, why it stood out to you, was her having to make the choice that her family had to come first, and she had to sacrifice what she wanted. Women do this all the time. We are always making bargaining, right? We're always bargaining with what we want and what our family needs.
Yeah. But there's, breast cancer, stalkers. Some of these women are politicians. Some of these women are doctors. It's really senators, well, politicians. it's the scope of this series, and family issues, health issues, spiritual issues. It just there was no frontier that we didn't examine, and when we got to the end of it, I was actually quite startled. I remember being in this booth and recording the very last words of December and having to take a moment to just weep at this incredible journey that we had completed, of all of the pain, that that you wrote and I experienced, or and I really want to encourage our listeners. I took the moment in that moment to record how I was feeling, because I felt like we had come such a long way. And I recorded a tribute to my friend, ML Hamilton, my colleague, my collaborator, ML Hamilton, my employer, ML Hamilton, and to the Year of Discovery. And that tribute, it's just a few minutes long. It's on my SoundCloud page, and you can listen to it. And there'll be an end card at the end of this. Watch the credits, the very brief credits at the end of this Behind the Mic, and you'll find the link that will allow you to listen to the tribute that I recorded in the moment of finishing this series. How did you feel when you were finished, Michelle?
I think it was exactly what you said. It was exhausting, and it was emotionally draining. But there's the logistical part of it, the fact that we accomplished what we set out to accomplish. Is so powerful, right? And then like you said, when I view over the scope, I every once in a while I take out the covers and I lay them down and I just take a look at them, because it's really just it was this idea, and then it became reality. And again, I can't stress enough what it meant to me. I kid you not, whenever I would bring it up, people would be like, that's madness. You have really taken on something that you can't do. You were the only person who said, let's get on this train. Let's do this.
You never told me that. You never told me that before.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, there's nothing we can't do.
That is so well, you know what, that is just actually the epitaph on this whole series, is two women deciding that they were going to take on this challenge, and we did it, babe. We did it. And I think that's just the final testament to what the reason for this series was to show what women can do when they support each other and they have each other's backs. And that's a thing of beauty.
Truly, truly. Well, thanks for joining me for this 5th episode of Behind the Mic. And
so you want to give a preview of where we're going from here?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Our next one up is the next Peyton Brooks, Yetis and Whistler. And this has been long awaited. Very exciting. It's not the last one, right?
No, one more.
Yeah. And but we're very excited about that. We should be seeing that in late June. We're looking for a June release, so just like a month away. I mean, really close. Oh wow, just a month away. That's
perfect for your summer reading list.
Yep.
Your summer road trip listening.
Yeah. And shortly after that, we will have another Zion Sawyer Cozy Mystery for you. Yep. What coffee are we going to be?
What is it? I think it's I'm not sure.
All right.
So
Well,
look it up.
stay tuned.
Yeah. No, oh no, it is. It's mocha, cafe mocha.
Oh, ooh, Cafe Mocha.
Yeah.
Yay. All right. So always something coming. Join our newsletters if you'd like to know more on a regular basis. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. We're there with all of our audiobook and writing news. And I can't wait till we can talk about Yetis and Whistler.
All right.
Take care.
Care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Hamilton and Hazen Behind the Mic. Visit authormlhamilton.net and kelleyhazennarrates.com to join our newsletters for more insider news and views. Today's episode is sponsored by Phoenix Publication Services. PPS, Digital Shepherds. Let us ignite your writing goals.